Now we are going to discuss Krashen's input hypothesis monitor model. We are going to discuss the theory in general, 5 hypotheses, and the factors involved in input hypothesis theory. Stephen Krashen, a linguist and professor emeritus at University of Southern California, known for his theories in language acquisition and development. His second language acquisition theory has had a great influence and impact on second language research and teaching since 1980s. His work, his theory is especially this input hypothesis theory, has contributed immensely in the research as well as the teaching of English as a second language. According to Krashen, acquisition requires meaningful interaction in the target language, which is natural communication, in which speakers are concerned not with the form of their utterances, but with the messages they are conveying and understanding. So you can see that it is the meaningful interaction that forms the crux of this particular theory, whereby the learner is not only concerned with the forms of the utterances, the actual rules of language, rather the conveying and understanding. These are the focal points. Now, according to this particular definition, here the emphasis is on communication. It's not just the utterances of the sentences, rather the messages, they need to be meaningful when conveying and while being understood. Language acquisition, in another definition, he says, it does not require extensive use of conscious grammatical rules. So basically, the conscious grammatical rules and their understanding is not the key factor. Rather, comprehensible input is what he has emphasized. According to Krashen, understanding of extensive rules of grammatical rules are basically a tedious drill of learning and repeating, acquiring and repeating. That is what is not important. What is important is comprehensible input. Information or input which can be comprehended, which can be understood. That is the crucial and necessary ingredient for the acquisition of language. So the meaningful interaction is important, and for a meaningful interaction you need comprehensible input. The best methods are there for those that supply comprehensible input. So emphasis is on what supplies comprehensible input in low anxiety situations containing messages that students really want to hear. So students are motivated to hear something which for them is easy to understand. These methods do not force early production in the second language, but allow students to produce when they are ready. So there's no pressure on the learners, recognizing that improvement comes from supplying communicative and comprehensible input and not from forcing and correcting production. So the emphasis again is on communication based on comprehensible input. The input hypothesis claims that people acquire language through interaction by understanding messages or receiving comprehensible input. It states that learners progress in their knowledge of language when they comprehend language input that is slightly more advanced than their current level. Now, the existing knowledge that they have and a level which is slightly enhanced or advanced. Krashen called this level of input I+1, where I is learner's interlanguage. Interlanguage system is that when a learner is moving towards the acquisition of second language, is the in between he or she forms a language that is called interlanguage, And when you're moving to the next stage of acquisition, that is where +1 refers to. That is the next stage of language acquisition. Now let's see what actually input hypothesis is in terms of 5 hypotheses that it contains. The first one is called acquisition learning hypothesis. Now, according to this hypothesis, acquisition is seen as subconscious learning, which was facilitated by Chomsky when he proposed universal grammar or a theory of LAD, that this is subconscious learning, the acquisition, the acquiring of information, and there is a presence of language acquisition device. Second is monitor hypothesis, which means conscious learning operates only as a monitor or editor that checks or repairs the output of what has been acquired. So as the name states, it monitors the output. The third is natural order hypothesis. According to this, there is a natural order of acquiring language rules, grammatical structures. They are acquired in a predictable manner. Input hypothesis says that it is not just input, but comprehensible input that is easily understood by learner that will deliver the grammar needed. Factor filter hypothesis is that learner's emotional state can act as filter to impede or to block input necessary for language acquisition. Things such as conscious learning, motivation, stress, classroom environment, confidence, all these can trigger the mental filter. The input hypothesis is only concerned with acquisition and not learning, and there are certain internal and external factors that are involved in the process of second language acquisition. Among the internal factors, you have age, personality, motivation, experience, cognition, and native language. And as far as the external factors are concerned, one has culture and status, motivation, which is extrinsic as opposing to intrinsic. Intrinsic motivation has to do with personal determination and willingness to carry out a task, whereas external is related with the environment and people shaping up or motivating learners. Access to native speaker, curriculum instructions, these are the external factors which constitute or which take part in the second language acquisition process. To conclude, Stephen Krishan's theory of input hypothesis claims that second language acquisition occurs through exposure to comprehensible input and contains 5 hypotheses to explain the acquisition process. The internal and external factors also play a crucial role in second language acquisition process.